Hey guys, first Regardsman here, and I'll be talking about the easiest tactical build in Space Marine 2 Patch 12 to push into max difficulty. Now in this build, I will be using the Melter Rifle. I think this gun is very underrated on the tactical for both Tyranids and Chaos, mainly because it gives them access to both healing and armor regen built into his primary weapon. The tactical is a very squishy class, so having the option to use rapid health that can put you over 30% HP for killing 7 enemies in rapid succession, that can take you out of one-shot thresholds, so really good for that. And the perk here, Trick Shot, killing 5 enemies with one shot, restoring 1 armor segment with a cooldown of 30 seconds. This perk is super valuable on him because the Melter Rifle will one-shot Zangors, it will one-shot Hormigons, it will also definitely one-shot the Cultists, and getting armor regen on this class especially is super valuable. Now, the first perk you take in this tree is Decisive Reload. Performing a finisher on a Majoris or higher enemy with this weapon restores ammo by 1. The tactical actually has a very easy time with the ammo economy because we do have the perk Emperor's Vengeance, which is why I do wind up taking the range variant, because having that extra damage fall off is super strong on this option here, which is why I pretty much always pick this up after like patch 9 when they buffed it, and this perk can help your ammo economy even further. Next perk here is Great Might. Damage increases by 10% against Terminus level enemies. The rest of the Melter Rifle tree is pretty boring, I'm not gonna lie, because first we have the perk Divine Might for a flat 10% damage increase, then we have Extended Magazine, and then we go into the perk here First Shot, and then we grab the perk here Retaliation, which is a 25% damage increase after a perfect dodge, and the final perk is just a fire rate increase. So pretty good, but pretty boring effects, which is why I pretty much always go down this tree. And the bottom one, it's not like god awful, but the damage here is a bit better in my opinion. That's pretty much all there is for the Melter Rifle. Now for the secondary weapon, I do take the Rate of Fire Plasma Pistol, because one of the benefits of the Melter Rifle is you can kind of get like the maximum value from this gun while you take Plasma Boost, because balance distribution does buff up your damage, but the damage of the Melta is really not as important as the Stagger and Horde Clear, because most of your damage nuking potential on the tactical actually comes from your Auspex scan on top of weapons like the Power Gladius or your Plasma Pistol with Plasma Boost. When plasma weapons are 30% overheated, their damage increases by 40% and their charge shots use 1 less energy. When you get a 50% damage taken debuff from a perfect parry on a boss or an Extremis, and you combine that with your Plasma Pistol here in an Auspex scan, you will do a ridiculous amount of damage to bosses, even on absolute difficulty and hard strats, so a really good combo there. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, the damage taken debuff, I do have a full video on defense types that I'll put like a link to in the description, because that'll explain it there. Now, Plasma Boost is very strong on its own, but with the Rate of Fire Plasma, you really get a ridiculous DPS, because the Rate of Fire stat here, this will increase the charge shot speed of your weapon, and we further increase that in the perk tree with perks like Perpetual Velocity. Now, the rest of the perk tree is purely built around ammo economy, because this gun is incredibly ammo inefficient even with Plasma Boost, so having perks like Plasma Collection and Efficient Charge, these will make your life significantly easier, and they also build right into perks you want anyways, like the aforementioned Perpetual Velocity here, and Divine Might for a 10% damage increase, and even more ammo reserves with stuff like Plasma Collection. And that's pretty much all there is for the secondary option here. Now, for your melee weapon, you have a couple options. You could take the Argent Edge. This is by far the safest option, in my opinion. This weapon will interrupt any enemy on their combo on the first parry, no matter what, for a gun strike. That makes it the safest weapon in the entire game of any fencing variant, and on top of that, the perk here, Scathing Retort, will give you damage on every single parry, but keep in mind, your parry window is a little bit smaller on this. It feels far closer to block weapons. You have to like press the parry button as the attack actually hits you, far more like a normal fencing weapon. So if you're less comfortable with that, you could take like a fencing chainsword instead. That is up to you, but for the most part, if you can get past that like shorter parry window, this one's definitely a better option. Now, the Power Gladius is a god tier weapon for boss nuking, because the perk effect here, Agile Strike, after a perfect dodge, the next melee attack deals 100% more damage and can be stacked up to 3 times. If you combine this with an Auspex scan on the Shadow Stab, you can just straight up one-shot bosses sometimes. Really strong option for tactical because of that. And on top of that, there is also a hidden perk effect here that the damage bonus will linger 1 second after the initial attack, so it's even better than it sounds initially. Now, on the Power Gladius, I would set it up this way on the perk tree. First, I take the perk here, Perpetual Strength, into the perk here, Kinetic Energy. Then I grab Perpetual Strength again, and then I move here into the perk Heavy Onslaught for 15% more heavy attack damage. This perk will also affect your Shadow Stab perk here as well, so it's even better than it sounds initially. And the next perk here is Ruling Blow, up into the perk Tide of Battle, and then you can either pick up the perk Shoulder Bash, or skip over this for Perpetual Strength for even more damage, and either way, I would always pick up the final perk here, which is Terminus Slayer, because boss damage, that is why you take the Power Gladius to begin with. Now for the Argent Edge, I do set this one up a bit differently from the Power Gladius, mainly because we go down the top tree first for Armored Strength into the perk here Sharp Impact. Right and left Skull Crusher AoE radius increases by 50%. This weapon only has a 3+ speed versus the 7+ speed of a Power Gladius, and because of that, we are not triggering as many options for kinetic energy here, because this requires multiple consecutive heavy attacks, and that just does not happen as often, even in hordes, as it does on the Power Gladius. For this version, I think the AoE radius and not them around is a bit better. Next perk here is Perpetual Strength and Perpetual Strength once again, and then I pick up the perk here Heavy Onslaught again, though alternatively you could pick up Combined Onslaught on this one, and the final perks are Reeling Blow into the perk Tide of Battle, and then I pick up Shoulder Bash once again, and the final perk is up to you, Terminus Slayer or Extremis Slayer, depending what damage type you want more, and that's pretty much all there is for the weapon setup. Now for the Tacticals perk tree, I do take the perk Plasma Boost first for the reasons I previously mentioned, then I move here into the perk Heightened Vigor. After a perfect time parry, block, or dodge, you deal 10% more melee and gun strike damage, do not lose control from heavy hits, and cannot be knocked back for 10 seconds. This is just the easiest perk option here because getting stun locked is a huge issue for a lot of players, but I will say if you feel more comfortable, you can take Relentless Pursuit, or you could even take Versatility. Both of these will buff up your range damage quite a bit for both the Power Gladius and Argent Edge options because both of them get gun strikes quite often. So if you want to do this and you're more comfortable with that, you definitely can. Next perk here is Emperor's Vengeance. Killing a Majoris or higher enemy restores your primary weapon's ammo by 1 magazine, cannot exceed maximum ammo capacity, the cooldown is 30 seconds. Now, this perk just solves the ammo economy of your Melter Rifle entirely, though I will say, if you are playing with a team, if you are finding ammo boxes properly, you might not need this for like your Melter Rifle at all. You could take Emperor's Judgment instead, because this one does automatically reload your ranged weapon, and having that on a Melter Rifle is pretty useful because the Melter Rifle has a 5 business day reload speed, but that is up to you. Next perk here is Secure Stockpile. Equipment charge restored by 1 for all team members. Cooldown is 60 seconds. This is a 60-second cooldown for equipment for your entire team. That is incredible. Even if it's just like a frag grenade or a shock grenade, even just cracks, even if you just completely ignore Melt-A-Bombs as an option at all, this is still the best team perk in the entire game, in my opinion. It is ridiculous how much damage this actually puts out. It is a value generation machine and has not been nerfed since they made it like a perk effect in the first place, so definitely grab this for like any top tier build. Next perk here is Vital Data. Scanning Extremis or Terminus level enemy restores Auspex chance charge by 50%. This is an incredible perk effect because it just gives you more Auspexes versus the enemies you want to kill the most, which are Extremis and Terminus. And the base cooldown of an Auspex in this game is 90 seconds, or like 90.9 seconds anyways, so this one is really valuable on the tactical class. Next perk combo here is Precise Calibration and Concentrate Fire. This will give you a 195% damage bonus on your Auspex, but they will lose the mark if they leave the scanned area. That is harder to use for some players, so if you are less comfortable with that, an easier option could be building into expert timing with things like priority targeting and battle focus even, or just precise calibration. These are easier to use. You will lose like a bit of radius on this, but the damage buff here is still quite substantial, and even though Concentrated Fire is better in my opinion, this one's easier to pull off. So if you want to use this perk combo, you definitely can. That is up to you. Now, this perk will also make it so your Auspex scan zone lasts 60% longer, so it's more value on top of that. And if you really don't want precise calibration, you could pick Battle Focus. This is also a very strong perk, but keep in mind, Battle Focus will not apply any other Auspex damage bonuses. This only applies a base Auspex on parry or block. The final perk here for the signature tree is Radiating Impact. A melee finisher additionally deals significant AoE damage in a 10-meter radius. The cooldown is 90 seconds. This will one-shot Majoris on absolute difficulty. It'll also do significant damage to Extremis and even bosses. This is such a clutch perk. It's kind of ridiculous how much this actually overperforms. It may not sound that good initially, but a 10-meter radius explosion in like a desperate situation can just straight up save your life, so I would definitely pick this up all the time, and it's by far the best of signature options at the moment. Now, for the Prestige perk tree, I do take Acuity first. I'm using like a bolter weapon, but for this build, you probably just want to grab Skill Supplier into the perk here Resilience, Fortitude, and then your choice of Spare Power or like Second Look. These are all up to you, but you know, we don't actually have a headshot multiplier on this build, so you have to skip over this perk. And that's pretty much all there is for this build guide. And hopefully this build guide helped you. The Melter Rifle is a pretty strong weapon on this class. I really do not see a lot of people mention this thing on the tactical anymore, but it's still a good option. It was a great perk tree. When you put down a Precise Calibration and Concentrated Fire Auspex and just start blasting into a horde, you will kill a ton of guys with this and your Plasma Pistol. Hey guys, First Regardsman here, and I'll be talking about the easiest assault build for Space Marine 2 Patch 12 to push into higher difficulties. Now, on this build, I will be using the Heroic Power Fist Death's Grasp, mainly because this is like the best fencing option in the entire game for assault when it comes to armor reinforcement because of the perk over here, Follow Up Shot. Performing a finisher marks a nearby Majoris or higher enemy for a gun strike. A light attack damage increases by 200%, but charge attack damage decreases by 50%. Now, the gun strike damage on assault is already quite high thanks to perks like Proven Efficiency, but if you combine this perk with the perk over here, Armor Reinforcement, that gives you 1 armor on every single non-finisher gun strike, you are getting so much free armor that on both Chaos and Tyranids, your life is going to be like 10 times easier, so a really good synergy there, and one of the reasons the Death's Grasp Power Fist is so strong on assault, at least for newer players. Now, the 200% bonus light attack damage here also means you can just punch enemies without animation locking yourself as much, and the losing 50% charge attack damage does kind of suck, but to be honest, this weapon does so much charge attack damage anyways with a base 15 strength that it's really not that much of a downside even with the 50% charge attack damage reduction. Now, for the perk tree on this, I do start off with the perk here, Perpetual Strength, then I move here into the perk Heavy Preparation. Heavy attack preparation times reduced by 30%. Even with the 50% charge attack damage reduction, having a faster heavy attack helps you out for a lot of reasons. Number one, you will be able to stagger enemies at a distance far more easily. The Power Fist still has a ridiculous range on charge attacks, even on this version, so definitely pick this perk up. The next perk here is Perpetual Strength, and Perpetual Strength again for a 10% melee damage increase. And then we pick up the perk here, Focus Intention. When your health is below 30%, you take 50% less health damage while preparing heavy attacks. This is one of the best defensive perks in the entire game, and like I mentioned before, your heavy attacks are still very strong on this weapon, so still pick this one up. It is far better than the perk option below, which is Rally. Next perk here is Tide of Battle. Power Wave forward distance increases from 4 to 8 meters. This will actually take your Power Wave distance from 10 to 20 meters. The description here is wrong, so it's way better than it sounds initially. Next perk here is Following Blow for an instantaneous Back Fist and Back Fist 2 after a Thrust Jab. Thrust Jab being your base charge attack on this weapon, so a really good perk options for free damage. And the next perk here is Strength of Will up into the perk combo, and the final perk is Majora's Slayer, and that's pretty much all there is for the Power Fist build. For the secondary weapon, you do have a few options. If you are fighting Tyranids, I would probably pick up a Heavy Bolt Pistol, mainly because fighting Neurothropes and Zoanthropes with a Plasma or Inferno Pistol just sucks ass in this game. So for Tyranids, I usually pick up the Ammo Reserve option on the Relic tier or the Heroic option. Both are very strong. As far as the setup for these guns go, I do pick up the bottom tree predominantly because the bottom tree just has the best perks for the Assault class, starting off with the perk here, Divine Might for a 10% damage increase, into the perk here, Perpetual Penetration, Increased Capacity, Extended Magazine, and the perk Death Strike. After killing a Majoris or higher enemy in melee combat, you will deal 25% more damage for 10 seconds. This will also trigger off a melee finisher on just a melee kill, so keep that in mind, and a 25% damage buff for pretty much free on this class is actually pretty damn strong. Next perk here is Great Might, into the perk here, Strong Start. Then I pick up the perk Able Damage. After you use a class ability, damage increases by 20% for 10 seconds. On the Assault class, you will use your Jump Pack all the time on pretty much every single build. This is up pretty much 24/7. Next perk here is Home Precision, up here into the perk Gun Strike Reload that instantaneously reloads your gun after a gun strike. We are a gun strike build, so really easy to pull off. And the final perk here is Tactical Precision for 20% more headshot damage, and non-headshot damage decreasing by 10%, because the only thing that matters on a Heavy Bolt Pistol on both the Heroic and Relic tier options is your headshot damage, so definitely grab this one. Now, if you're fighting Chaos, I would probably take the Plasma or Inferno Pistol, mainly because you do want some form of stagger for Soul Cannon Terminators and stuff like that, and also the Chaos Spawn. For the Plasma Pistol, I take the Rate of Fire version just because the contested health recovery here is top tier, and the damage is also quite high. And for the perk tree, let's go full ammo economy and stuff like Divine Might and Perpetual Velocity for more shot charge speed. Now, for the Inferno Pistol, I just take the Ammo Reserve option because this class is pretty ammo hungry, and having this on Chaos is actually pretty damn useful. I actually prefer the Inferno Pistol these days on Chaos for operations like Vortex and stuff like that, because it actually performs quite well versus both the Soul Cannon Terminators, Melee Terminators, and Chaos Spawn. Now, for the perk tree here, we do go down the bottom tree, Perpetual Range, because effective range is actually pretty damn important, since the Ammo Reserve option, while having a very high magazine capacity, which is totally worth it, does also have a much lower range than the Rate of Fire version does, so that's why we pick up this perk first instead. Next perk here is Brace Reload, into the perk here, Perpetual Range again, then I pick up the perk Great Might, into the perk Increased Capacity and Adamant Restoration. When your health drops below 30%, your Ammo Reserve is restored by 25% of the maximum capacity, cannot exceed maximum ammo capacity, the cooldown is 30 seconds. This perk is like the only ammo restoration perk for the secondary option on this class anyways, so definitely grab this on this build. And the final two perks are Extra Shot and Trick Shot for armor restore on a 30-second cooldown for killing 5 enemies in one shot, which is very easy to pull off against Chaos, against even Zangors, but especially the Cultists, and that's pretty much all there is for the secondary selection. Now for the Assault's perk tree, I do take the perk Armor Reinforcement first. This is by far the safest option for this build and really any Assault build. 1 armor for every single non-finisher gun strike is incredibly valuable in this game because any amount of armor remaining in Space Marine 2 will reduce all incoming melee damage to 0 even from bosses, so that makes you incredibly safe on Tyranids and even Chaos. And next perk here makes you even safer with Defense Mechanism. Contested health fades 50% more slowly. Contested health is one of the hardest things for newer players to deal with, so this perk will make your life significantly easier because of that. So combining these two perks together makes it very hard to die and gives you a huge margin for error. Next perk here is Active Attrition. Enemies hit by damage from melee attacks executed while sprinting or dashing take 25% more damage for 5 seconds. This will apply a 25% damage taken debuff to the enemy that you hit for you and your entire team. It will also buff up your gun strike damage, which is a pretty rare effect in this game. But I will say, if you want to pick up Perseverance for like HP reduction during your charge attacks or knowledge of the enemy for more flat damage, you can definitely do that. I'm just taking this one for more gun strike synergy. Next perk here is Proven Efficiency. All team members deal 30% more gun strike damage. This is a gun strike build, so more gun strike damage is kind of a no-brainer. Now for the gear perk tree, I do take the classic combo of Smiting Angel, Zealous Blow, and Pride and Duty, mainly because this is by far the easiest combo to pull off for any player. All you have to do is just go up into a horde and then go down and get all of your charges back. That is super easy to pull off. You don't have to do anything like timing with Wings of Flame or Furious Strikes and stuff like that. So for the purposes of this build, I think it is the best option for most players. Next perk here is Ample Ammunition. Any use of Jump Pack or reloads the equipped range weapon increases damage by 50% for 10 seconds. Since we are not playing with Wings of Flame, I'm not taking Commitment. Commitment is definitely the better perk, though, I will say that. If you feel more comfortable using perfect dodges on their own with the Jump Pack dash, you can definitely grab this for the animation cancel. It is definitely a better option if you're trying to, like, you know, min-max this class, but Ample Ammunition is definitely easier to pull off, and so is Takeoff. So if you want to take these two, you definitely can. The major benefit of Ample Ammunition, in my opinion, is actually for the Inferno pistol. This weapon has a 5 business day reload speed, so being able to instantaneously regenerate this off of a single jump pack is actually pretty strong. I did use this before they buffed up Commitment to actually work with like animation cancels and stuff like that, but that is pretty much all there is for the main perk tree here, and hopefully this gave you a better idea of how to set up this class. Now for the Prestige perks, I do take Duelist first because this just gives you a bigger parry window on a fencing weapon, making it incredibly easy to pull off. The next perk here is Fortitude. Health increases by 15%. Then you can either pick up Scramble Targeting or Practice Aim, and the final perk I would grab no matter what is Hammer of Wrath, for a 30% range damage reduction upon jump pack use and no knockback for 15 seconds to keep you from being stun locked. And that's pretty much all there is for this build, guys. I do think this is probably the easiest build in the entire game for Assault right now for both factions. You just have to make sure you set up your secondary weapon properly depending on what you're fighting, but for the most part, it's really not that hard to run at all, and Zealous Blow is still a very powerful perk combo, even though Wings of Flame and Furious Strikes, they can be a bit better if you're at like a higher skill level. But for now, that's all I have to say in this one. Hey guys, first regardsman here, and so I'll be talking about the easiest build for the Vanguard class in Space Marine 2 patch 12 to push into higher difficulties. Now, the Vanguard is usually the class I would recommend for new players anyways, mainly because he has access to a ton of healing effects with stuff like Adrenaline Rush and Unmatched Zeal, on top of the fact that a lot of his damage reduction perks like Conviction down here are automated upon armor break, and other options are just off parry, which are really easy to pull off for a lot of new players on like fencing and even balanced weapons. Now, for the primary selection here, I do take the Melter Rifle range variant, mainly because the Melter Rifle is really good for armor regen, stagger, and healing on top of the Vanguard perks, and it's also one of the easiest guns in the game to use currently, so really good for this build all around. Now for the perk tree here, I do start off with the perk Decisive Reload. Performing a finisher on a Majora's level or higher enemy with this weapon restores ammo by 1. This just partially solves your ammo economy on the Vanguard, and Vanguard's ammo economy kind of sucks, so you definitely want this perk. Just keep in mind, you do have to have the weapon equipped to actually trigger this. If this one's in like your back pocket and you have your sidearm out instead, it will not trigger, so be aware of that. Next perk here is Rapid Health. When your health's below 30%, killing 7 enemies in rapid succession restores your health by 10%. This is just more healing on top of your healing perks. This may be a little bit redundant on the Vanguard class, but you know, HP healing is HP healing. That's a pretty rare effect to come by. Next perk here is Trick Shot. Killing 5 enemies with 1 shot restores an armor segment. The cooldown is 30 seconds. Now, it's pretty easy to use this perk off cooldown because one-shotting Hormigons, one-shotting cultists, and stuff like that, that is a really easy thing to do with the Melter Rifle. You might have a little bit of trouble with Zangors, but either way, it's going to be easy to pull this one off over and over. Next perk here is Great Might, over here into the perk Divine Might for a 10% damage buff. And then we take the perk here, Extended Magazine, into the perk First Shot. The first shot after reload deals 10% more damage. Then we grab the final two perks here with the Retaliation, and of course, our Perpetual Fire for a fire rate increase. And that's pretty much all there is for the Melter Rifle portion. Now, for my secondary, I do take the Heroic Heavy Bolt Pistol, mainly because you don't suffer from ammo economy too much on this build. If you really want to, you can pick up the Heavy Bolt Pistol ammo reserve relic here instead, or even like an Inferno pistol. That is up to you. All of these will work, but for this build, I'm taking the Heroic because I took this build to Chaos, and using No Help is Coming against Chaos Spawn is actually super useful at the moment, because unfortunately, Chaos Spawn, for whatever reason in this game, they don't like to get their reinforcement calls interrupted at all points, so using this perk is like the only way to properly do that, or at least do it consistently. Now, for the perk tree on this, I do take Divine Might first into the perk here, Perpetual Penetration. Then I grab the perk Increased Capacity, Extended Magazine, and Death Strike. After killing a Majoris or higher enemy in melee combat, you deal 25% more damage for 10 seconds. Now, this will trigger on a melee finisher, not just a melee kill, but the big issue with this perk, on this build at least, is that you have to choose between triggering this one or the perk up here, Decisive Reload, because both of them require you to have the weapon equipped during the melee finisher, so just keep that in mind. If you want to have the ammunition restoration, you have to have your Melter Rifle equipped. If you want the damage buff on your secondary, you need to have the secondary equipped. And also, if you swap off your secondary while this is active, it will lose the effect. So a few downsides on this one, but not too bad. It's still worth taking. Next perk here is Great Might, up here into the perk Discipline. When you have low ammo, you deal 25% more damage. A 25% damage buff for just shooting your gun more is really strong in this game. I actually like this perk a lot. Alternatively, you could go down here into the perk Able Damage here, which gives you a 20% damage increase on a class ability use. The Grapnel and the Vanguard is used over and over, so you can take either one of these. They're both pretty strong, but it's up to you. Next perk here is Strong Finish, into the perk here Headhunter. Then we pick up the perk Gunstrike Reload, and of course Tactical Precision, because headshots dealing 20% more damage. That is all you really need on a heavy bolt pistol anyways, because losing 10% non-headshot damage, like, you really aren't shooting body shots on this gun no matter what, so just take this one. And for the Inferno perk tree, if you want to take this, you can build it this way. I think this is the overall best setup, and that's pretty much all there is for the secondary options. Now, for my melee weapon, I do take the Argent Edge Heroic Combat Knife. This is the best fencing weapon in Space Marine 2 currently, in my opinion, mainly because it will parry interrupt any enemy on the first attack in their combo chain, no matter what. There are a lot of attacks in Space Marine 2 that will not give you a gun strike on the first parry against Sword Warriors, melee Terminators, and things like Lictors even at times, so having this will save your life where you might get stun-locked otherwise, making it the overall best defensive tool in the game. Now, the heroic perk effect here is called Scathing Retort. The riposte window is shorter, but each riposte deals damage. All this means by riposte is parry window, so your parry window is a bit shorter. You will get a little bit of damage on the parry, and the actual parry window here feels a lot like a block weapon, where you pretty much just have to parry the enemy the moment their attack hits. That may be a bit more difficult for some players, so if you do feel more comfortable with a standard fencing option on the other weapons like the Power Axe or Chainsword, you could definitely take those, but overall, the Argent Edge is the best defensive tool in the game. Now, for the perk tree on this, I do take the perk here, Armored Strength first, moving here into the perk Sharp Impact, mainly because the perk down here, Kinetic Energy, is not super good on this weapon because you only have a 3+ speed here, which does make it like the slowest knife of all the relic and heroic options in the game, and because of that, you don't get as many consecutive heavy attacks here anyways, so picking this one up instead for like an AoE on your Skull Crushers, which are like your normal heavy attacks, is way better in my opinion. Next perk here is Perpetual Strength, into the perk here Combined Onslaught. I usually find myself doing light combos of this weapon far more often than the heavy attacks, like I said before, so a 10% buff to this is pretty nice. And I move here into the perk Tide of Battle, up into the perk Shoulder Bash, because I just prefer the Shoulder Bash over the distance stab on the lunging attack. And the final perks here are Reeling Blow, into the perk Extremis Slayer and Hard Target, though alternatively you could skip over this perk, take Shadow Stab, maybe like go here into Perpetual Strength and go all the way down instead for Shadow Stab with like heavy onslaught and stuff like that, but that is up to you, and that's pretty much all there is for the Argent Edge. So for the Vanguard perk tree, we're mainly building this to be as automated as possible. So number one, we take Upper Hand. This just gives you no knockback for 10 seconds on a parry, block, or dodge. That is really all you need to avoid most unlocks from things like Sword Warriors and stuff like that. There are things that will still knock you over and kill you in this game, because the way that no knockback works in Space Marine 2 is that it turns a attack that would knock you over into a normal stagger, and attacks that would only stagger you will do nothing instead. So really good for like those base level stun locks. Next perk here is Conviction. When your armor is fully depleted, you take 25% less health damage for 10 seconds. A 25% health damage reduction here is very substantial. This will make you significantly tankier, so definitely pick this one up. Though if you want to have an easier time with your parry window, you could take Duelist. Next perk here is Consecutive Execution. Killing 7 enemies in rapid succession restores equipment charged by 1. The cooldown is 90 seconds. This is by far the best perk in this column here. Retribution is a pretty terrible damage calculation, and the perk down here, Home Reactions, is pretty good, but a 90-second frag, crack, melt a bomb, or shock nade, these are top tier equipments pretty much all around. Even the frag grenade on 90-second cooldown is still pretty useful, so definitely pick this one up. Next perk here is Unmasked Zeal. Melee finishers of Extremis or Terminus level enemies additionally restore health by 30% for any team member. This is like one of the most popular team perks in the entire game already, so most of you probably already take this on your builds, but here it's kind of a no-brainer. Next perk here is Restless Fortitude. After a diving kick, you take 40% less range damage for 10 seconds. This will make you very tanky when you're going in against like Rubric Marines and stuff like that. Well, some of the most annoying attacks in Space Marine 2 are from Enraged Warriors or Enraged things like the Rubric Marines, so having a 40% range damage reduction while you are going in on top of Conviction, on top of Persistence, we'll get into later, or excuse me, Thrill of the Fight, is a very strong effect. Next perk here is Tip of the Spear. Enemies hit by diving kick take 15% more range damage for 10 seconds. This is just a free damage buff on a kick. You know, it's not the best perk in this column, but as far as like ease of use is concerned, it is by far the best option for that. Next perk here is Thrill of the Fight. After a perfect time parry, block, or dodge, you take 20% less health damage for 5 seconds. This is super easy to trigger. It'll also trigger every single time you do one of these effects over and over. What I mean by that is, even if the 5-second duration is ongoing, if you parry, block, or dodge, you will get a reapplication of the 5-second duration. So really easy to have this up pretty much 24/7. The final perk we take here is Adrenaline Rush. Melee kills of Majoris or higher enemies restore your health by 5%. HP restoration in Space Marine 2 is really good for a margin for error increase for obvious reasons, so definitely pick this up for the quote-unquote easiest build. And for the Prestige perk selection, this one's pretty standard as well. I take Battlefield Awareness first for a 10% range damage buff while within 8 meters of an enemy, because you are a Vanguard with a grapple launcher, so being within 8 meters, that happens pretty much all the time, and you also have a melter rifle, so definitely a place you want to be. Final perks here are Fortitude, Launch Restoration, and Restoration, because more sources of armor restoration in this game is always good for damage reduction. Hey guys, first regards in here, and I'll be talking about the easiest Bulwark build for Space Marine 2 patch 12.2 to dominate Tyranids and hard stratagems and even chaos at times. Now, the Bulwark class is a pretty easy class in general, mainly because he has a 30% increased starting HP, on top of a plethora of damage reduction like Conviction and Steel Within, so really easy to survive on. He also puts out a ton of damage. Now, the weapon I'm using today is the Fencing Power Axe, mainly because fencing weapons are just the easiest to use overall, and they also have really good synergy with the perk over here, Intimidating Aura. A perfect time parry deals AoE damage in a 5-meter radius. The cooldown is 5 seconds. This perk puts out so much damage that you can pretty much one combo parry Gunstrike any Majoris in the game, so a really good option for this build. And the Fencing Power Axe is also quite good for Horde Clear, though I will say, if you want to use the Balanced Power Axe on this build, you can also do that. We will set them up in the same way. All the balanced weapons got a 15% base damage buff in the last patch, and they are substantially better now, but today I'm using this just because it's a bit easier. Now, for the perk tree, I do take Perpetual Strength first, moving here into the perk Coup de Grace. The last strike of a light combo deals 25% more damage. Then we pick up the perk here, Perpetual Strength, and Perpetual Strength for a 10% melee damage increase. And then I grab the perk Patient Stance. While in Power Stance, you do not lose contested health. This is just a nice perk to help you out a little bit. Power Stance is just what you go into immediately off of any parry, so really nice to have. And the next perk here is Endless Slash. You can endlessly chain your Whirl Slash attacks. This perk may not sound that good initially, but when you start to play around with it more, when you start to go through like Minora Swarms and you're trying to Whirl Slash them, being able to do 3 or 4 consecutively, especially on a fencing or balanced version, is very good in this game, so I do pick this one up. And the next perk here is Power Strike. Gun Strike from Power Stance, it deals 20% more damage. This perk just gives you more gunstrike damage, and gunstrike damage is something you use all the damn time on a fencing weapon. The next perk here is Power Wave. Power Backstep Wave damages more enemies. Moving down to the perk Tactical Retreat, Power Backstep deals 25% more damage, and I pick up the final perk here, Cleaver. Damage increases by 10% against Majora's level and higher enemies. Now, this is definitely a better perk on the balanced version of the fencing version because your base damage is much higher, but you use it on both if you want to. If you really want to like go pure fencing, you can skip over these two perks or like even just go all the way down the top tree to pick up stuff like restoration and the perk here slash momentum. They're not god awful. I just prefer it this way because usually I do use a balanced version, but it will still function on fencing. And that's pretty much all there is for the power axe tree. Now for my secondary weapon selection, I do take the heavy bolt pistol ammo option here, mainly because I hate fighting Neurothropes and Zoanthropes with a plasma gun. Now, the plasma pistol is way better versus Chaos because you can interrupt range enemies like Rubric Marines and more importantly, the Missile Cannon Terminators. But against the Tyranids, I would definitely pick up a heavy bolt pistol here just because the ammo economy is way better on this thing and the damage from the headshot multiplier does help out against those Zoanthropes I mentioned before. Now, for the perk tree here, I do build it with Divine Might first. Into the perk here, Perpetual Penetration, Increased Capacity, Extended Magazine, and of course, Death Strike. After killing a Majora's level or higher enemy in melee combat, you will deal 25% more damage for 10 seconds. This will trigger off of a melee finisher, not just a melee kill, so keep that in mind. And also, you do have to have your secondary equipped to get this to actually trigger, but on a Bulwark, we only have a secondary, so really easy to pull off on this guy. So I just want to make sure you're aware of that. Next perk here is Great Might, up here into the perk Discipline. Then I grab the perk here, Strong Finish, Headhunter, Gunstrike Reload, and Tactical Precision for more headshot damage, because headshot damage is pretty much the only reason you take this gun. Now, on the Plasma Pistol, if you want to take this versus Chaos, I would just build it up this way. It's pretty much the same as always because ammo economy is just like number one on this gun, especially because the rate of fire plasma is by far the best, but the ammo economy on all variants kind of sucks for this gun. So definitely build it like this, and that's pretty much all there is for the secondary. Now for the Bulwark perk tree here, I do take Intimidating Aura for the reasons I previously mentioned. Moving here into the perk Scramble Targeting, if you are surrounded by 5 or more enemies, you take 25% less damage from range attacks. Now, some people like Armor of Contempt, but even if you're a new player, I think Scramble Targeting will benefit you more because range damage reduction is pretty much free here, and you only have to do anything to trigger this, so I would definitely pick this one up. Next perk here is Steel Within. When your health's less than 50%, you will take 30% less health damage. A health damage reduction on this class especially is incredibly substantial, and mainly because you have a base HP increase of 30%, so any HP reduction on top of that is going to make you feel incredibly tanky. I would definitely grab this one. Alternatively, you could pick up Armor Reinforcement because Armor Reinforcement is a very strong perk versus Tyranids because any amount of armor remaining in Space Marine 2 will reduce all incoming melee damage to 0 even from bosses, but that being said, I still think that Still Within is just an overall better perk. Next perk here is Advanced Conditioning. Contested health fades 50% more slowly for all team members. I think one of the hardest things that new players have to deal with in this game is the CHP system, and anything that makes that margin for error a little bit easier for you is going to be a really good boon for your team and yourself, so I would definitely pick this one up if you're new. And if you feel a bit more confident, you could pick up Focus Restoration, because I do think this one is overall better for the same reasons I talked about before with armor on Armor Reinforcement, but Advanced Conditioning, definitely a bit more forgiving. Next perk here is Purity of Purpose for like a shock nade around your banner that can almost like 100 to 0 Majoras and stuff like that. So definitely pick this one up. And the next perk here is Invigorating Icon. When the banner is activated, all team members regain maximum contested health, but it recharges 50% slower. This perk just prints full HP for your entire team. It is still one of the best perks in the entire game, even after the 50% recharge nerf. And honestly, anything that gives you full HP in Space Marine 2 is going to be pretty top tier because it kind of just breaks the pickup economy of the game. So definitely pick this up for like a super ultra meta build. Next perk here is Rejuvenating Effect. When the banner is activated, it revives incapacitated squad members in this area of effect. This just helps you out a little bit more where you can just insta revive your teammates. I know new players like revive effects like this, so if you want to pick this one up, you definitely can. Alternatively, you could pick up Merciless Resolve or Inspiration, but is up to you. The final perk I grab here is Armored Advance. This just gives you no knockback while you have armor remaining, and having like an automated source of no knockback in this game is really good for new players as well, because you only have to do anything to make sure this triggers. Though I will say it is better with perks like Focus Restoration and Armor Reinforcement, and that's pretty much all there is for the main perk tree. Now, if you have access to prestige perks, I would pick up things like Resilience first, Medicate Stimulus for 40% more HP, into the perk here, Overcharge. Held and charge attack damage increases by 20%. This is one of the best melee attack perks in the entire game, mainly because it is a 20% multiplicative damage increase to the heaviest hitting attacks on pretty much every weapon, so I would definitely grab this one. And the final two perks are Powerful Shot and Masterful Defense, because getting 1% ability back for every single blocked range attack is incredible in this game, especially with a 50% nerf to the recharge rate of your banner with this perk active. And that's pretty much all there is for this build, guys. I do think that the Bulwark is one of the easiest classes in the game. If you just take Intimidating Aura on like any fencing weapon for most content, you know, hard strats, Tyranids on absolute difficulty, you can kind of mop them up with this perk and a fencing weapon alone. And hopefully this build guide helped you. And hey guys, first regards here, until I'll be talking about the easiest sniper build in Space Marine 2 past 12 to push into higher difficulty operations and hard stratagems. Now, the main idea behind this build is using our Inferno Pistol for horde control, using the Heroic Instigator here to trigger our Pattern of Excellence perk, and also just stacking a ton of damage reduction with stuff like Persistence, Conviction, and also getting our contested health back very easily off of perks like Purification. Now, for the Heroic Instigator Carbine, this is my preferred choice on this build, mainly because the Hero perk effect here, Higher Rate Burst, will give you a 5-round burst versus a 3-round burst, and the DPS output of this one is significantly higher than the other Relic Tier options, so definitely the best pick here, though I will say there are a ton of powerful options for the Sniper class. You could take the Marksman Carbine here with the Ammo Reserve option, you could take the Automatic option, you could even take a Last Fusel. It's pretty hard to go wrong. It's just that this weapon here, taking the Burst Fire option, that will let you trigger the Pattern of Excellence, where your Inferno Pistol simply cannot. Now, for the perk trend list, I do take the perk here, Headhunter first, moving here into the perk Efficient Hunter. After reloading while having low ammo, headshots deal 35% more damage for 5 seconds. Then I pick up the perk here, Fast Reload, and then I start to go down into the bottom tree for the perk here, Divine Might, into increased capacity. I do find that having more ammo on this feels pretty good, though I will say, if you want to take the perk up here, Finisher Reload, to instantaneously reload your weapon after a finisher, this is also a very strong pick, pretty hard to go wrong. Next perk here is Great Might, up here into the perk Recoupment. Killing a Majoris or higher enemy with a headshot this weapon restores one armor segment. The cooldown is 15 seconds. Even with Purification, having extra armor restoration is a pretty nice thing to have, especially since usually you'll be triggering this on a Tyranid Devourer or something like that and avoid chip damage, because occasionally the ranged Tyranid units especially, they will shoot a range volley out at you, and the volley will move slow enough that once you kill them, it'll actually just hit you after the fact, and you won't have anything to recover your CHP from, so having some armor there does help out quite a bit. Next perk here is Tactical Precision. Headshots deal 20% more damage, and non-headshot damage decreases by 10%, because headshot damage is pretty much all that matters on this gun and any bolter weapon, but especially on the Sniper class, where you have a 10% starting HP, or excuse me, not HP, starting damage increase on your headshot damage, you definitely want more on top of that. Final perks here, a Headhunter, into the perk here, Rapid Health, for some healing, and that's pretty much all there is for the main weapon build. Now for my secondary weapon selection, I do take the Rate of Fire version of the Inferno Pistol, mainly because the contested health recovery here is a bit higher, and also so is the DPS. Though I will say, if you want a bit more ammo, since this one is pretty ammo hungry, you could take the other version here. It's also a pretty strong option. Either way, I would set the perk tree like this, taking Perpetual Range first, moving here to the perk Brace Reload, and then Perpetual Range again. Then I pick up the perk here, Great Might, into increased capacity for more ammo reserves, and then we pick up the perk here, Adamant Restoration. When your health drops below 30%, your ammo reserve is restored by 25% of the maximum capacity, cannot exceed maximum ammo capacity. The cooldown is 30 seconds. This is ammo restoration built into your secondary, which is pretty much impossible to find outside of very niche perk effects like this, so a really good option here. And the final two perks are Extra Shot and the perk Trick Shot for 1 armor restoration for killing 5 enemies with 1 shot, with a cooldown of 30 seconds. Now, this is pretty hard to pull off against Zangors, but against Hormagaunts and Cultists, it is pretty easy. It will also trigger off things like Bramble or Spore Mines on top of things like the Skulls from a Sorcerer, so keep that in mind as well. And that's pretty much all there is for the secondary. Now, for the melee weapon, we do take the Heroic Combat Knife Argent Edge once again, mainly because the Argent Edge is just the best fencing weapon in the game currently. If you're trying to have an easier time overall, you just want to take this one, because it will interrupt any enemy on the first parry in their combo chain no matter what. What I mean by that is a lot of the enemies, like a melee Terminator, a Ravener, they have triple hit combos that will not give you a gun strike opportunity off the first one or stagger them. You will simply get a parry animation instead, and this weapon will circumvent that and give you a gun strike every single time, so a really powerful defensive option. Now the heroic perk effect here is called Scathing Retort. The riposte window is shorter, but each riposte deals damage. By riposte, this one just means perfect parry window, so each perfect parry is giving you a little bit of damage, and the perfect parry window here feels very similar to a block weapon. So if you aren't comfortable with that, you could take a fencing option instead, but I really would suggest just learning the Argent Edge, because the Argent Edge is just that good as a tool to like stop you from getting stun locked. Now, for the perk tree here, I do take the perk here, Armored Strength first, moving here to the perk Sharp Impact. Right and left Skull Crusher AoE radius increases by 50%. Now, normally on a combat knife like this, I would take kinetic energy, but this weapon is actually pretty damn slow with a 3+ speed, so getting consecutive heavy attacks off is not something that happens a ton. It's really not worth it anyways, in my opinion, so I do prefer the AoE radius of this perk instead for Horde Clear. And the next perk here is Perpetual Strength into the perk here Combined Onslaught for 10% more light attack damage. And the final perks here are Tide of Battle and the Shoulder Bash perk for a better lunging attack. And then I finish off with Reeling Blow, Extremis Slayer, and Hard Target, though alternatively you could skip over these two and take Terminus Slayer and like Perpetual Strength or even Shadow Stab if you want to like go down here into Heavy Onslaught. That is up to you, and that's pretty much all there is for the melee selection. Now for the Sniper's perk tree, I do take the perk Melee Mastery first. Melee damage increases by 20% against Majoris and higher enemies, and the main reason I take this is because it's a 20% multiplicative melee damage increase. This is actually one of the best melee perks in the whole game, and unfortunately the perk up here, Block Break, it gives you a 50% damage penetration on like enemy block shots. This will not trigger headshot perk effects at all, or like headshot damage multipliers, so I would definitely skip over this. And Medicate Adept is really not that useful at all, because you can kind of just get guys up no matter what in your camo cloak, so definitely grab this one. Next perk here is High Capacity, though alternatively you could take Vantage Point, you could take Adaptability, that is up to you. I just want a bit more ammo. Next perk here is Dexterous Hands. Bolt carbines reload 20% faster, and their weapon spread recoil reduced by 15%. Well, we are using an Instigator bolt carbine, and they did patch this way back when to actually function on the Instigator, finally, because for a while it was broken. And also, this is the only perk that does anything for this build on this column here, because we have Iron Grip up here for both snipers and stalker bolt rifles, which is useless, and the perk down here, Lethal Efficiency, is only for a last fusel rifle. Next perk here is Squad Renewal. A headshot kill restores ability charge by 10% for any team member. You mainly pick this up to enable your camo cloak. Now, they did hotfix the camo cloak to have a base cooldown of 90 seconds instead of 125. So if you're kind of insane, you could take Marksmanship instead, I guess, but I would still pick this up because a 10% ability charge restore on every headshot is a very powerful effect, and also enables you to casually take the perk Purification for full CHP recovery and also removing negative stats effects on a camo cloak. Next perk here is Targeted Shot. The first ranged attack that breaks camo cloak deals 75% more damage. Now in patch 11, they actually buffed this perk up to function for like a lingering effect. So basically you can get the full damage bonus here for all 5 shots of your heroic instigator. So if you're quick and you just like aim every single shot at their fucking brain, you're gonna have a pretty easy time just getting this full 75% buff for every single individual shot. Next perk here is Persistence. When camo cloak deactivates, you take 20% less health damage, do not control from heavy hits, and cannot be knocked back for 10 seconds. This is a great perk effect for damage reduction and no knockback. No knockback does prevent stun lock. I do think this is one of the best perks in the column overall, though I will say Lingering Concealment is also a very powerful effect. You want to take this instead. The final perk is Pattern of Excellence. This is the best signature perk on the sniper in my opinion. Performing 3 consecutive headshots restores equipment charged by 1. The cooldown is 30 seconds. Pretty much every equipment in Space Marine 2 is game changing, so having a 30-second cooldown on a crack, shock, or melt-a-bomb especially is incredible. Melt-a-bombs in particular being like the best form of horde control in this entire build, so I would definitely grab this perk, and you will also trigger this on every single individual shot from a Instigator burst, so keep that in mind. And for the Prestige perk options, we take the pretty standard here, which is Emperor's Grace first. When Camo Cloak activates, you become invulnerable to damage for 2 seconds. Invulnerability in Space Marine 2 also gives you total no knockback effect. You will just phase through enemy attacks, so a really good utility option. Versatile Precision just gives you 15% of your primary weapon's ammo back on a 15-second cooldown for killing any enemy with your secondary weapon. That pretty much just gives you infinite ammo effectively on your primary weapon in operations and parts strats, so definitely grab this one. The next perk here is Conviction. When your armor is fully depleted, you will take 25% less health damage for 15 seconds. A 25% health damage reduction in Space Marine 2 is incredible, and when you stack this on top of Persistence, you can get up to like 45% health damage reduction, and also get all of your CHP back on one button press, so a really potent effect of health damage reduction that makes it pretty hard to die if you're using your Camo Cloak properly. And the final perk is up to you. I took Exacting Focus for this build. After a gun strike, you deal 20% more range damage for 10 seconds. And this is really easy to pull off on any gun strike in the game, and you are also using an Argent Edge, so getting gun strikes happens all the time. Though I will say the safest option here is probably Indomitable Spirit for no knockback on gun strike, because there are occasions where getting CHP back on a gun strike is pretty mandatory, and getting knocked around will just get you killed. So if you want to take this, you definitely can. I just took this one today, and that's pretty much all there is for this build, guys. The Sniper is a pretty easy class to play with Purification. This perk definitely carries him a lot, but honestly, as long as you manage your cloak properly and use things like Pattern of Excellence, you're gonna have a pretty easy time overall with any build on him, and hopefully this build guide helped you. Hey guys, first regards from here, I'll be talking about the easiest heavy build in Space Marine 2 patch 12 to push into higher difficulty. Now, on this build, I will be using the Multi-Melta. This has been one of the easiest guns in the entire game since launch, really, and even in patch 12, it is still a top tier option, so we'll be using that today. Now, the variant I've chosen here is the magazine capacity version, mainly because the heavy class especially benefits from having a fat magazine capacity, because most of his ammo regeneration and perk effects, like auxiliary reload down here, they are percentage based on these heavy stance weapons, so having a larger base capacity means you get more ammo off of every trigger, so pretty good option there for him. Now for the Multi-Melta perk tree, I do take the perk increase capacity first. The maximum ammo reserve of this weapon increases by 20%. This will up our total capacity even further to give us even better triggers on auxiliary reload, and it also helps out the next perk here, which is Elite Restoration. Killing a Majoris or higher enemy restores 10% of your maximum ammo reserve, cannot exceed maximum ammo capacity, cooldown is 30 seconds. This perk is pretty good. You do get that percentage restore just like you do on auxiliary reload on this weapon, which it does help out with the magazine capacity version here, but the unfortunate thing about this perk is that you do have to shoot the enemy. You can't just do a melee attack on them or a melee execute, which does kind of suck, and a 30-second cooldown is fairly long, but you know, ammo is ammo. Next perk here is Heavy Fire for a better fire rate and heavy stance, and then we pick up Perpetual Range for more attack range, and then we go up here into the perk Heavy Immunity. While in heavy stance, you don't lose control from heavy hits. This is pretty much mandatory in my opinion. Having no knockback and heavy stance, it means you can just fire where other things would just stun lock you, so definitely pick this perk up. Next perk here is Executioner's Fire. After a finisher, fire rate increases by 25% for 5 seconds. This is actually the main rate of fire enabler on this variant of the weapon. When you are taking the rate of fire version, having this perk is pretty much a top tier option because it really ups your fire rate a ton on this weapon, so definitely grab it. Next perk here is Heavy Might for more damage and heavy stance. Then I pick up the perk Trick Shot. Killing 5 enemies with one shot restores an armor segment. The cooldown is 30 seconds. This perk is incredibly potent as an effect. A 30-second cooldown on armor restore may seem pretty shit initially, but one armor is all it takes to stop like 90% HP damage from a card effects melee hit, so definitely pick this one up. Next perk here is Heavy Might for even more damage and heavy stance. Then the next perk is Death Strike. After killing a Majoris or higher in melee combat, you'll deal 25% more damage for 10 seconds. And this will also trigger off of a melee finisher, not just a melee kill, so you actually simultaneously trigger this perk and the perk over here, Executioner's Fire, so a really good synergy there, and more damage is more damage, so pretty good. And the final perk here is Increased Capacity for even better ammo reserves, and that's pretty much all there is for the Multi-Melta tree. Now for the secondary weapon, I do take the Rate of Fire Plasma Pistol, mainly because this one just has amazing contested health recovery, amazing stagger, and great damage for a secondary option. Also, the gun strike damage here is quite good as well. And the Rate of Fire stat here will improve your charge speed, so really good to get that contested HP even faster. And for the perk tree, it is set up as usual. Let's go down the top tree, because unfortunately on this weapon, you are so ammo inefficient without things like Efficient Charge or Plasma Collection that going down the bottom is just not worth it. Like, that's just kind of an unfortunate truth of the Plasma Pistol. The top tree is just kind of goated, and the bottom tree is really only good for stuff like Divine Might and Plasma Collection, so I would just go up here instead, and that's pretty much all there is for the Plasma Pistol setup. Now, if you are fighting Tyranids and you want to fight Zoanthropes and you want like an easier time with them, you can take the Heavy Bolt Pistol. I would set up this way on either the Ammo Reserve option or the Heroic option. Both of these are quite strong. The Heroic perk effect here, No Help Is Coming, will help you out with stopping reinforcement calls, because being able to shoot one reinforcement calling guy in the head and instantly kill him, that is a pretty efficient use of ammo. And also on absolute difficulty and above for things like hard strats, any enemy that you interrupt usually goes in rage, so you're actually saving more ammo on that on top of the horde being stopped. So a really good option all around, and that's pretty much all there is for the secondary selection. Now for the Heavy's perk tree setup, unfortunately he has a pretty limited perk tree selection at the moment in terms of what's like super strong in the game. So number one, we take Restoration. Killing 7 enemies rapid session restores an armor segment. The cooldown is 15 seconds. Like I mentioned before with the multi-melta tree and trick shot, armor restore and a drip feed in this game is incredible. Any amount of armor remaining in Space Marine 2 will reduce all incoming melee damage to 0 even from bosses, so this is a very powerful perk effect. Definitely pick this one up for an easier time. Next perk here is Fortitude. Health increases by 30%. When you combine this perk with the perk down here, Conviction, for a 25% health damage reduction on armor break, you are baseline as tanky as a Bulwark with Conviction, which is pretty insane, and you really have a hard time dying on this class with this perk combo, so definitely grab this because HP increases in Space Marine 2 are already very valuable on their own, because below 25% HP, you do get a ramping damage reduction anyways, so further damage reduction on top of that with Conviction, on top of the fact that you have a base higher HP with this perk, is going to be very potent. Next perk here is Overwhelming Power. When Iron Halo is active, all team members within 10 meters deal 10% more range damage. This is just a free automatic range damage buff for using your class ability, which you do all the time, so definitely grab this one. And the next perk here is up to you. You could take Encompassing Aegis for less range damage, you could take additional supplies for even more ammo, or you could even take Bonds of Brotherhood if you really want to. I think for like brand new players, Bonds of Brotherhood can be good because people are like going down all the time. They're picking up their friends, they want to come back with full HP. That feels pretty good to play around with for them. Now, Encompassing Aegis I think is way better, but if you want to pick up this one, you definitely can. Next perk here is Consecutive Execution. Killing 7 enemies in rapid succession restores equipment charged by 1. The cooldown is 90 seconds. Equipment recharge in Space Marine 2 is a top tier effect, like regardless of which equipment you have. It doesn't matter if it's a frag, crack, shock, or the god tier melta bomb. Equipment will save your life. Equipment can stagger enemies, it can wipe out hordes, it can do significant damage to annoying enemies like zoanthropes and chaos sorcerers and stuff like that, so this is a top tier effect pretty much no matter what, and you are highly likely to find at least one useful equipment in your game, so definitely grab this. The next perk here is Power Regulator. Iron Halo loses energy 20% more slowly. This one just makes it so your Iron Halo loses energy more slowly, obviously. That's a very easy effect to use. You could also take Obdurate Bastion if you want to for more durability. I might skip over Field Adjustment if you're a brand new player. It does require you to like manage your Iron Halo a bit more, so if you're like brand new, pick these two. That's what I would do. Next perk here is Brute Force. When Iron Halo is in cooldown, range damage increases by 15%. This perk will simultaneously trigger with the perk over here, Overwhelming Power, because while Iron Halo is active, it also counts as in cooldown, so you get a 25% buff, pretty good synergy there. And the final perk is Offensive Capability. When active, Iron Halo deals damage over time to all enemies within 5 meters. This is just a free damage over time effect for having your Iron Halo up. To be honest, the signature perks on the heavy class are not that good anyways. This is probably one of the stronger options because you can one-shot Spore Mines, Cultist, and Bramble, which does make it a pretty good utility perk, though alternatively you could pick up Conversion Field because having squad members regeneration be better is pretty good for their class abilities. Now for the prestige perks, the first two we take here are Auxiliary Reload and Conviction for the reasons I previously mentioned. This solves your ammo economy, and this gives you a ton of damage reduction, making you way tankier, so definitely pick these two up. The next two are kind of up to you. I would definitely pick up Indomitable Spirit personally. This one says, while performing a gun strike, you don't lose control of heavy hits and you cannot be knocked back. There are moments in Space Marine 2 where you will simply have to use a gun strike to get CHP back. If you get knocked out of that, you might just die, so this one's super valuable. The final perk, however, I take here is Duelist. Perfect parry and perfect block windows increased by 25%. I think this one is the easiest for newer players, but if you want to pick up Reverberating Impact or Exponential Force, these are also quite strong, and Home Precision just sucks, so I would skip over this one. That's pretty much all there is for Prestige perk setup. That's pretty much all there is for this build, guys. The Multi-Melta is still a very strong gun in Space Marine 2. You pretty much have instantaneous stagger, instant horde control, and instant CHP regen, so all around a top tier pick, though I will say once again, if you're fighting Tyranids, the heavy bolt pistol can be better, and the plasma pistol is probably better for chaos, or even the Inferno pistol, because this one did have a 22% gun strike damage buff this patch, but hopefully this gave you a better idea of how to set them up, and that is all I have to say in this one. Hey guys, first Regardsman here, and I'll be talking about the easiest Techmarine build in Space Marine 2 patch 12 to push into higher difficulty operations and hard strats. Now, the main idea behind this build is stacking things like range damage reduction on top of armor restoration, and using some of the easier bolter options like Precision Servo or like the standard bolter option with the burn perk. Now, the primary weapon I've selected here is the Heroic Heavy Bolt Rifle, mainly because this is like the best primary on the Techmarine currently thanks to the grenade launcher attachment. Grenades will get you back all of your contested HP pretty much instantaneously, on top of giving you stagger and more horde control, so a really good overall for him, on top of the fact that this weapon is just a pretty good bolter option in the game already. Now, for the perk tree on this, I do take the perk here, Headhunter, first for 10% more headshot damage, then I move here into the perk Adamant Hunter. When your health is below 30%, headshots will deal 25% more damage. Now, usually on the Techmarine, being below 30% HP kind of sucks because that does put you into like one-shot stunlock territory, but a 25% damage buff here while below this HP threshold is still a pretty strong effect, so we do pick this up. Next perk here is Fast Reload into the perk here Able Reload. After you use a class ability, the equipped weapon instantaneously reloads. This is actually a pretty good perk on Techmarine because your servo gun can be turned on and off again pretty easily, so triggering this like automatically reload your weapon, that is an easy thing to pull off. Next perk here is Headhunter down here into the perk Great Might. Then I pick up the perk Increased Capacity. This one gives you a 20% increase to your ammo reserves. Now this counts for both your grenade launcher attachment and your base ammo, so really good all around for this build. And the other perk I take is up here with the perk Tactical Precision. Headshots deal 20% more damage. Non-headshot damage decreases by 10%. Headshot damage is still worth taking on this build, even though you do lose 10% damage on your grenade launcher, and that doesn't hurt too much because the CHP recovery here is still pretty much instant, and the 20% damage bonus to your headshots and hard strats and operations, that is definitely worth it. I would definitely pick this one up. Next perk here is Recoupment. Killing a Majoris or higher enemy with a headshot of this weapon restores one armor segment. The cooldown is 15 seconds. Now, armor restore is a very powerful effect in Space Marine 2 already. Any amount of armor remaining will reduce all incoming melee damage to 0, even from bosses. So having a free armor restoration built into your primary weapon, that is a pretty awesome perk effect, and a 15-second cooldown is really not that bad at all. Next perk here is Rapid Health. When your health is below 30%, killing 7 enemies in rapid succession restores your health by 10%. This is actually a really good perk on the Techmarine, mainly because he does not want to be below 30% HP, because like I mentioned before, that puts you into like one-shot stunlock territory, which is a pretty bad place to be on this class. It's also very easy to trigger on the heroic heavy bolt rifle because you do have a grenade launcher just blow up like 7 Hormiguns. Next perk here is Perpetual Penetration, and the final perk is Divine Might for a 10% damage buff, and that's pretty much all there is for the Heroic Heavy Bolt Rifle. Now for the secondary weapon selection, I do take the Rate of Fire Plasma Pistol, mainly because this weapon is great for staggering both Chaos Spawn and Soul Cannon Terminators and stuff like that, and without this weapon, you do kind of struggle against Chaos sometimes, though I will say the Heroic Heavy Bolt Rifle is still pretty damn strong at interrupting a lot of the more annoying enemies on Chaos. I just take the Plasma Pistol for like a secondary effect on top of the fact that the CHP recovery here is top tier as well. Now for the perk tree on this, I do go all the way down the top tree, things like Plasma Collection into the perk Rapid Cooling. Really, you always build the top tree on the Plasma Pistol. This just has all the perks you actually want. You get things like Efficient Charge, you get things like Perpetual Velocity for a 20% faster charge rate. The Rate of Fire stat here also ups your base charge rate already, so this perk actually stacks on top of that even better. And the final perks here are things like Plasma Collection and Divine Might, and that's pretty much all you want on this weapon. Now, alternatively, you could take things like the Heroic Heavy Bolt Pistol or the Standard Heavy Bolt Pistol. These are still quite good. I just think the Plasma Pistol is overall better for the build. That's pretty much all there is for the secondary. Now, for the melee weapon, I do take the Heroic Combat Knife, the Argent Edge. I know we have a Power Gladius skin here. We'll swap that out for a second. But the big thing about the Argent Edge is that you have the heroic perk effect here, Scathing Retort. The riposte window is shorter, but each riposte deals damage. All this means by riposte is perfect parry window, so your perfect parry window is a little bit shorter, but each perfect parry will do a bit of damage. And on top of that, this weapon will interrupt any attack in an enemy's combo chain and stagger them immediately and give you a gun strike. So this is by far the best fencing weapon in the game currently, in my opinion. It's actually kind of insane how much this prevents stun locks in Space Marine 2 currently. So if you're going for like a fencing option, I would pretty much always pick this up. But if you are not comfortable with that shorter parry window, you could take other options, like maybe even the fencing Omniscient Axe or fencing Power Axe. That is up to you, but overall, the Argent Edge is definitely the safest weapon out of the bunch. Now, for the perk tree here, I do take the perk Armor Strength first, moving here to the perk Sharp Impact. Right and left Skull Crusher AoE radius increases by 50%. This weapon only has a 3+ speed, so taking perks like Kinetic Energy, I don't think it's really worth it at all. You don't get a ton of consecutive heavy attacks on this weapon in my experience, so taking this one's a bit better for horde clear. Next perk here is Perpetual Strength again, moving here to the perk Combined Onslaught. Light combo attacks of this weapon deal 10% more melee damage. Like I said before, you don't use the heavy attacks as much on this one as say like a Power Gladius, so I do pick this one up instead. And the final perks here are Tide of Battle, Shoulder Bash for a better lunging attack, and then I pick up Reeling Blow into Extremis Slayer and Hard Target for a 15% range damage reduction here on a light combo. This will actually stack with things like Omniscient Axe Deflection while this is active, on top of things like Scramble Targeting or Defensive Stance, to give you well over like 50% plus range damage reduction, which is very strong in this game. You actually feel range damage reduction a lot on most builds, but especially this one because you have a ton of armor regen with stuff like Battlefield Repairs and Fortifying Salvo. Now, for the perk tree here, since we just swapped off of it for a second, but for the perk tree here, we do take the perk Explosive Enfilade first. After using equipment, your range damage increases by 15% for 10 seconds. The main reason I take the Bolter Servo option is because the Bolter Servo gun is very good at just pressing the ability button. The shots are near instant, they travel much faster than Plasma does, and they will recover you your contested health on top of applying the burn. So that is a much better thing for newer players, I think. Now, something new players might also benefit from is using the precision enhancement on top of decapitating stratagem or lethal perimeter, and mainly because this weapon, the sniper servo here, will one-shot zoanthropes and damn near one-shot the neurothropes in the game. Those are two of the most annoying enemies for a lot of players, so picking this one up, that can help you tremendously in this game, but you know, that is up to you. I think the bolter servo here is also quite strong. Next perk here is Omniscient Axe Deflection. After a perfect parry or perfect block, you take 25% less damage from range attacks for 10 seconds. Now, this perk is amazing with the Arch and Edge because you really don't need things like Arc Cleave at all. Arc Cleave gives you a 20% melee damage bonus to charge melee attacks. You hardly do that on the Arch and Edge whatsoever, so this perk is kind of useless for you. And the perk over here, Methodical Destruction, is pretty good. Omniscient Axe Deflection is just way safer. Next perk here is a Long Range Barrage. Range damage at ranges greater than 20 meters increases by 25%. This is a great perk with like pretty much any bolter gun in the game, but especially ones like the Heroic Heavy Bolt Rifle times 2 Headshot Multiplier, and Oculus Carbine, because being 20 meters away from an enemy, that happens pretty often, and the weapon spread on these weapons is really not that bad at all. Next perk here is Battlefield Repairs. Squad members restore 1 additional armor segment for finishers, armorers, or extremis enemies. An extra armor in this game on top of range damage reduction is incredibly powerful. This is by far the best team perk on the Techmarine currently since they buffed it up. It used to be the worst, but these days I would definitely grab it. Next perk here is Inexorable Salvo. While the servo gun is active, you don't lose control from heavy hits and cannot be knocked back. The effect lasts 15 seconds after deactivation. Having no knockback will prevent you from getting stun locked. Having a 15-second uptime for using your bolter for like 2 seconds is super nice to have. This is by far the best perk in this column at the moment for this build. Next perk here is Replenishing Salvo. Killing or incapacitating an enemy with the servo gun restores 1 equipment charge. The cooldown is 75 seconds. A 75-second Melt-A-Bomb, Crack Grenade, Shock Grenade, Frag, these are all incredibly useful abilities. Alternatively, you could pick up Augmented Tarantula. This perk is also very strong. You definitely feel the sentry gun damage increase here, and the longer duration is very noticeable, but either of these is a very powerful option for your build. I think the current weakest option is Augmented Ammunition. Next perk here is Fortifying Salvo. Killing or incapacitating an enemy with the servo gun restores 1 armor segment. The cooldown is 30 seconds. This is just a bit of redundancy for your armor restoration. You can definitely use this off cooldown. A 30-second cooldown for getting 1 armor back is actually pretty good in Space Marine 2, and you really don't need things like Strategic Gun Strike unless you're using Decapitating Stratagem and the perk over here, Precision Enhancement, which is another reason I think the bolter option is better for this build in particular. The final perk option here is Omniscience Fury. Servo gunshots set enemies on fire. If you are using the plasma or the bolter servo gun, you just take the burn perk, because without burn, these weapons kind of suck, so definitely grab this one. This will make your life significantly easier against hordes, bosses, and really anything you're fighting. Now, for the prestige perk options, I do take chain headshots first for bonus headshot damage for a heavy bolt rifle. Then I take unflinching focus, because diffing invulnerable while you're activating a tarantula sentry gun, that is an invaluable perk. You pretty much always pick this up. And the final perks here are stim boost for 40% more HP from stims, and defensive stance for 20% less range damage while surrounded by 5 or more enemies. On this build, you really do not need things like Furious Gunstrike, because your melee damage hardly matters at all. Blast Radius is pretty good, but kind of redundant at times, because a lot of the weapons in this game, or the equipment, excuse me, they already one-shot guys, even without like this bonus radius, and you're going to kill most of the guys in front of you anyways. And the next perk here, Volatile Sentry, despite having a 1000% damage increase on a sentry gun explosion, that barely does anything except one-shot Majoris, and Majoris aren't always nearby your sentry anyway, so I would definitely skip over this one. And that's pretty much all there is for this build, guys. I do think this is currently the easiest to run Techmarine build in the game. Hopefully this build guide helped you, and if you want to watch me live to ask me questions about the game or just come hang out, you can find me here on YouTube or on Twitch with a link in the video description alongside a link to my community Discord. And as always, guys, thank you for watching. Take it easy. Bye.